Okay, welcome to another sketchbook tour. This time I'll be kind of reviewing the Rhodia Touch sketchbook and then having a wander through this one. They're great pads, these. I think they are really nicely made. I quite like this thick band. The elastic band feels really durable. They don't have any sort of weird pockets or anything in them, which is actually nice. But the paper is very thin. Now, it's a multimedia. I can't remember the specs of this precisely, but I'll put a link below. It's not massively thin paper, so it won't take a huge amount of washes. And I think it's specifically designed for sort of ink work, really. But the nice pads. The paper's not got a lot of texture to it, which is something that I quite like textured paper nowadays. It's something that I think I prefer. But when I was buying a lot of these pads initially, I wasn't really sure what I was sort of doing. So so the paper's quite smooth in this pad, which can be a disadvantage with some techniques. But anyway, let's crack on. So a little Subaru. I don't know. I never got around to finishing that. Here is a little abandoned barn. Not a lot to say about that, apart from the sky is pretty mental. I don't know what I was thinking there. I do love me a pickup. That's, from a perspective point of view, there's something slightly weird with that, with the wheels. But anyway, it's a nice quick sketch. These are nice. Again, perhaps a bit too full in frame, if you know what I mean. The boat's a bit big for the page. It could be a bit tiny smaller, but that's really nice. It's a simple bit of line work. And I really like this. I think this is lovely. This very much makes me very nostalgic for where I grew up in Whitby, on the quayside where they used to unload fish, and well, they still do now, but not much of it. But yeah, it's a really nice little drawing. Again, a boat that's probably too big for the frame, and a camper van. Is that a T5 or a T3? I can't remember, but it's a V-dub camper. A friend of mine has one, and this was a bit of a trial run for a picture that I did as a present for him. This is quite a scruffy pad, I'll be honest. Gatwick Airport on the way to Norway here. I thought that was a work job. And some really quite random sketches of... I like that industrial... Some of the industrial stuff I find really interesting to draw. There's a little airport taxis. I put taxis, that's a bit weird. This is the flight to Oslo. Yeah, these are some of the little machines running around. And here's just a really simple little line drawing. I think that's an attempt to draw what's on the aeroplane, but it didn't quite work out. And this is an interesting experiment, really, in colouring. This super loose watercolour through here is really nice, and I love those little fenders there. Look at those, they're gorgeous. And the pop of orange for the life rings. That's quite a nice sketch, that. And this corner here, you see where the pigment's gone really strong. It just adds a little bit of interest. That's nice. Sorry, that noise. Just the dog heading upstairs for a little lie down. I do like these loose lines and then quite poppy colours. I think they work really well with the little guy now. Now these are some figures. They're figures. Some faces, but I did these before I started my other book, Facebook, if you know what I mean. I have certain sketchbooks that I use for certain things. So I've got one sketchbook that I will draw faces in, one sketchbook for figures. And whereas when I was doing these, I was doing lots of different stuff. This was sketched actually in Norway at Asker. This was a bit of genuine urban sketching. It's quite nice. I'm not sure about that cross-hatching there, but I love the foliage. That's worked really well. And this is a bit of an experiment with some coloured ink. I think this bright blue is Lami's turquoise ink from... yeah, and then I think this orange was just watercolour. It's quite nice. I think that shed's perhaps a bit too bright, if you know what I mean. It could be a bit muter, or this should be darker. But anyway, it was a fun little one, a little bamf. This was just a random sketch done in the street, really, where they were repairing the road. It's quite fun. This is a bit of a celebration of ink. It's quite muted for me, that. A little drawing challenge, and then the opposite, not muted at all, a little rowing boat on the river. You can see here I've been playing with reflections and trying to sort of figure out how to do things. It's not easy to draw water, but once you get your technique, it's not too bad. And again, I must be back in the airport here because I'm drawing these airport vehicles, which look like something from Thunderbirds, I think. They're very cute. Now this is an interesting one. I think this was a YouTube tutorial. It's really simple to do. It's basically a couple of different coloured inks, a brown, a very dark brown, and a yellow, and it's basically a sort of silhouette. I will do a tutorial of how to do this at some point. It's very easy. There's some really nice little bits in there actually. I don't know how much you can see. Quite splashy little bits. This is a bit of. I quite like some of the industrial thing around ports, container ports and things like that, and they make some really interesting shapes. Some of the pigment on here is actually glazed. It's so thick, so I think that's something about the paper, that it's not massively absorbent paper. And again, we've got some quite crazy colours here. This is a scene from Lindisfarne. Selective colouring again. I'm not colouring all the components in that. This was Hull Museum. I did a job for Warner Brothers in Hull, which was photography for the launch of the Harry Potter film, and I had some time to kill during the day, so I went to the very good museum in Hull. Had a wander around. It's free, and I've sketched this bus while sitting and have a coffee. Very pleasurable way to spend half an hour. And this was a view from my local park, which was very scruffy for me. A boat in the Asker. This was a really lovely little. This was done from a drawing of my little lad when he was just probably walking at about age 2. I'm very fond of this actually. He's walking down the path near the allotments above our house in the woods. This sketchbook actually got lost at a history festival and was sent back to me by some very kind people, because this was the sketch that I was terrified of losing. So there's more landscape stuff here. I'm not going to talk about this, apart from to say I was trying some things out here that I don't think were successful, but you learn a lot from making from doing sketches that don't work. This was about this time of year last year when I was up on the moors doing some sketching. Again, not massively successful, but it was a very enjoyable sketch to do. It was a cracking day to be outside. This is more from Hull, their Street Life Museum. Beautiful plane, little biplane, something from the 30s, I'd have thought, or even the 20s. And this was the last of the sketches at Hull, which wasn't successful at all. I think I was basically just killing time with that one. Some preliminary sketch for a commission. Again, this was one from Norfolk, I think, Branston Stave or something. Some of this is nice. I don't think the water really reads. I'm not sure about some of this cross-hatching, actually. But yeah, another exercise in sort of minimal sketching that. I don't know how you think about that. There's no greens, it's just the boats like that and then the red roofs. I don't know whether you think that works or not. This is fun. Another really simple boat sketch, but trying some different things, some different pigments, pinks and blues and things. And then this is again another travel sketch in Salisbury. Salisbury again. Very Georgian gate. A bit over painted that, I think. This is all mixed up because this is another sketch from the airport here. Condiments. And then this, which actually could have benefited from a bit more contrast in the pink, I think. It was probably not so good a choice, colour choice. I think the blue's fine, but perhaps softer blue and then maybe a grey here or something. But it was a nice sketch of what I could see out the window when I had I think it was a beer at the airport. And this is a random scene in Sheffield, but I like it. I think the big fat lines here, the quite looseness of this is really nice. I'm going to try and do some tutorials that are basically a bit like this. Yeah, this is not my usual style at all, and it's really quite different. I quite like some parts of it. I think the people are really cool. I quite like the little lamppost. I'm not sure about the layered colours, but it was fun. This was a sketch meetup at the Yorkshire Railway Museum. And this is the replica of Stephenson's rocket. Quite a fun sketch. And here is the one of the little construction logos that they used on the Channel Tunnel, which was quite a fun one to sketch. I often take a sketchbook with me when I'm going to meet a friend for a beer, and this one, I made sure I got there half an hour early so I could do a little sketch, and I think this was sort of Christmas time in one of the local pubs. It's quite fun. This was a walk with my sister. Here, a local reservoir. I really like that. I think that's got a lovely weight to it, and I like the sky, the perspective where the clouds get close together at the bottom and then spread out as they get closer to you. And the water's quite nice too. It's quite nice that. Sitting in the waiting room. This really, I don't know where this came from. It was a sketch of the botanical gardens, the winter gardens in Sheffield, but it kind of was never coalesced into anything. It was just a typical fine liner sketch, but it was never worked, or there was no depth put into it or anything, so it's remained a bit of an enigma in this sketchbook. Standard boat stuff. That was my kids' Paw Patrol. A little waiting room. And this was, again, another sketch I did out and about of Hen Cloud, which is in the west of the peaks. I quite like some of the touches in this. I think the foliage is quite pretty. You can see I've used a white gel pen to sort of pick out some various bits. And then this road in the background is just soft, there's no lines in that. It's quite effective actually. I'm not 100% convinced by the trees, but it's pretty good. And then just some, I think there's some guff in the back of this that's really quite nothing either, just quick little sketches. And what's this? Oh yeah, this is a little sketch from History Festival, which isn't very good. But yeah, I mean, they're nice sketchbooks, they're not expensive. But I think if you're going to be doing a lot of wet watercolours and things, probably not for you, but for just simple ink washes, they're pretty good. But as I say, the paper isn't massively thick, and the paper's quite smooth, so it takes a while to absorb, but certainly worth a try, something a bit different. So yeah, thanks, and we'll see you next time. Bye bye.